everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk with Tom on the Roundtable. My name is Tom, of course, and this is Let's Talk with Tom, the show where I talk about anything in animation I feel like talking about. And I'm feeling good today. It's the Lord's Day, and that Lord is Shrek. Yes, we are talking about the first film I ever saw in the movie theater, Zendaya's favorite movie, The Reason That Children Are Born, Shrek, which was a box office and critical hit. And this was partly because of the film's satirical tone, which allowed both children and adults alike to connect with the film's humor. I'm saying film a lot because that's what this is. It's not just a movie. It's a film. It's a piece of art. However, humor aside, I want to focus on something in this video that doesn't get much love, and that is Shrek's message. The story of the first Shrek movie was pretty simple, but it did a great job of framing the theme of self-acceptance in the face of defying the status quo. Shrek started off as an unlikely love story between an ogre and a princess. A story where Shrek was so used to being rejected by the world around him because he was an ogre. He just sat in his swamp wanting to be left alone because everyone he ever came across in his life reacted to him with fear and disgust over something that he has no control over. While the things he can control don't seem to matter as much because nobody gets past that initial layer of, oh my god, it's an ogre, he's gonna eat us, run away. In parallel to this, a guy named Lord Farquaad is staging a collection and relocation of magical fairy tale creatures, which as a kid I didn't really pick up on how dark that actually is and the historical implications, but this fits in the film's theme of prejudice against people who are different. And it also acts as a vehicle to introduce Donkey, who is one of the first people that Shrek has ever come across who doesn't immediately run away, and over the course of the movie he gets Shrek to open up more. But Farquaad dumped a bunch of fairy tale creatures into Shrek's swamp, so Shrek pulls up to his place and he's like, yo, let's cut a deal. Shrek is sent on a quest by Lord Farquaad to go pick up his Tinder match, Princess Fiona, so that way he'll leave Shrek's swamp alone and stop dumping fairy tale creatures there. And that's when Shrek and Fiona catch feelings because Fiona is secretly also an ogre, which Fiona thinks is awful because she thinks ogres are gross and disgusting and but like no offense to you, bro. So this common sense of identity between them creates a connection, then they fall in love, and it turns out that being an ogre was Fiona's greatest version of herself all along, and that's the message. To embrace who you are and be the best that you can with that, and that will bring you happiness. Then with the second movie, the idea is expanded on when Fiona comes home to her parents and she's like, yo, yeah, I'm an ogre now, and this is my ogre husband, and this is his best friend who's a donkey who sounds a lot like Eddie Murphy. And Shrek really has to deal with that because her dad does not react well, and a lot of that frustration ends up getting put on Shrek. Because this homie unconditionally loves his daughter, but this guy who she brought home, he's enabling her to be a delinquent, creating a bigger conflict out of the same idea, which is resolved in, again, the theme of self-acceptance, but we'll go into that a bit later when it's more relevant. And then the third movie, they needed a third movie. They had a head full of steam, they wanted to keep the franchise going, there was money to be made, merchandise to sell, and a wave of success to ride, which unfortunately turned Shrek the franchise into a thing it's set out to make fun of. The main problem in Shrek the Third was the fact that Shrek the character had reached his destination of self-acceptance. He was like, yo, I'm an ogre, that's fine. Like, I'm amazing. Like, yo, I'm Shrek, bro. I'm Shrek. You gonna tell me I can't do something because I'm an ogre? Nah, homie, I'm Shrek out here. I'm a cultural icon. So what should have happened is they should have had Shrek communicate this lesson that he's now learned and internalized to someone else who is in desperate need of understanding that. Which they did for a scene, but then they chose to, or they weren't able to, apply that to the rest of the story in the film. And they instead went with an I'm afraid to be a dad story, which could have also been good, but it wasn't really executed well. The story made no effort to be a framing device for what Shrek is all about, and they failed to go in depth and really explore the anxiety that can come from being a parent. It just fell back on lazy tropes and formulas to put out a mediocre installment to a franchise that was once amazing. Shrek went from the anti-fairy tale, anti-kids movie to DreamWorks' biggest cash cow. And that's the problem with thriving in counterculture, is eventually, as you become more popular, you're going to start transitioning into the mainstream. And that's a transition that's really difficult to adapt to. Your loyal following will start to turn on you once they start to see the roots of your fringe origins start to decay, and if you're not prepared to jump into that new role and perform just as well there as you did before, then it's really easy for things to die out. So things kind of went downhill from there. Before you knew it, Shrek seemed to have come and gone with 4 movies, a spin-off, some TV specials, but Shrek wasn't really gone. Shrek had made such a cultural impact that it wasn't the end of his time in the spotlight. At the turn of the decade, Shrek was revived in Frankenstein fashion through a new generation satire in the form of ironic memes. Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life was the spark that brought the ogre back into counterculture, allowing the generation who grew up with Shrek to practice the same spirit of what made people connect with Shrek in the first place. The internet became just as Shrek crazed as they did back in the day, with horrifying mutations of the source material that would have you asking when the last time you went to church was. Because people were praising Shrek as a prophet in a somewhat concerning fashion, but the whole time it was actually in spirit of what Shrek is all about. At its core, Shrek is built on the idea of being a reject, but being able to transcend that into something greater. It tackled how it feels to not be what people want, and just deeply wishing to be less different, less objectionable, just universally acceptable, despite the fact that that would cost you your individuality. And what Shrek teaches us is that your individuality is more valuable than all those other things. It's about realizing that there's nothing wrong with who you are and that you can overcome those feelings. You are more than good enough as you are. You are amazing. You are love. You are life. The thing about meme culture in cases like Shrek is on the surface it seems like, oh, people are just trying to be funny, people are just trying to be edgy, but there's always a reason for what we do. There's always going to be an underlying psychological motivation. And there's always some layer of truth to every joke that we tell. And that's why people love comedy so much. It's because it's a reflection of who you are deep down. When you start trying to make yourself laugh, that's when you're going to be unapologetically honest about who you are. And sometimes that can be scary because you might look at some of the things that you find funny and realize, oh, maybe I need to evaluate who I am as a person because I probably shouldn't be finding this funny. But what the Shrek memes ultimately did was they allowed the generation that grew up with Shrek to fully embrace the spirit of why not and express themselves honestly. Through the spirit of why can't an ogre do good things? Why can't a princess be an ogre? Why not? To make us feel like maybe the things that we can't change about ourselves aren't stopping us from being amazing. Because Shrek is amazing, even if the things about him that are seen as imperfect. Celebrating that people can do anything, no matter who they are, if they are willing to challenge the expectations set for them. So even though a lot of people look at the fact that Shrek became a meme as something that happened in spite of the source material, it's actually a somewhat beautiful result of the lessons that that source material was teaching us. That if you're not like everyone else, that should be something that you wear as a badge of honor, which was something that the inspiration for Shrek embodied throughout his entire career. And once again, pro wrestling injects itself into these videos without me even trying, because French professional wrestler from the first half of the 20th century, Maurice Tillet, was a superstar and former AWA world champion who allegedly inspired the character of Shrek. During his teen years, Maurice developed a form of giantism that only affected his hands and face, so instead of getting taller, he just looked really disproportionate. But that was something that Maurice embraced to be what we call in wrestling a draw. He embraced what made him different to become a superstar that people came out in droves to see. People cite his influence on Shrek from his appearance to his in-ring mannerisms, and now we can add the fact that he embraced that you shouldn't be ashamed of what makes you different. Because Maurice didn't see his physical deformities as something that made him less than anybody else. In fact, he saw it as something that made him special. It set him apart, and he succeeded because of that. And this is the same reason that we as a generation gravitate towards people like Guy Fieri or Danny DeVito, because they don't fit the typical standards of what we are supposed to be striving to be, but they're still exceptional at what they do. Danny DeVito is out here showing the world that you can be under 5 feet tall, chubby, bald, and still be an amazing actor, director, or even be a sex icon. Guy Fieri's out here showing us that you can walk around with bleached hair, shirts with hot rod flames, and talk about Flavortown, and you can still be one of the most respected chefs in the world, a cultural figure, or you can even be a sex icon. A more topical example is someone like Lizzo, someone who doesn't fit the mold of our society's beauty standards in a society where, as a woman, your value is often going to be tied to your ability to meet those standards. But she's fully willing to embrace the fact that she is not what society wants. And yet she is loved not only for her insane musical talent, but also because she refuses to be ashamed of who she is. And look at where that got her. She's got a #1 song. And a quote from her that I think is relevant here to this whole idea is, if you can learn to love me, then you can learn to love yourself. If you can learn to love and appreciate and look up to someone who society has told you not to, then you can look at yourself and appreciate the things about yourself that society has told you not to. Like me, I'm a short dude, and I hate when people act like that's something that I should be ashamed of, like I would be better or more valuable if I was taller. when in reality it's not something I can change. It's not something I should feel ashamed of. I'm the height that I am, and that doesn't disqualify me from being the best that I can be, or even the best in general. Plenty of people have done amazing things at my height or shorter, so there's no reason that I should feel like I'm worth any less because I'm not as tall as someone else thinks I should be. And you know who taught me that? Eddie Guerrero. But also Shrek. Shrek wasn't Prince Charming, quite literally, but that didn't mean that Prince Charming was better than him. In fact, they even communicate that in the script, that Prince Charming isn't like intrinsically better than Shrek just because he's handsome and has silky smooth hair and a jawline that can break diamonds. Like, he's a dick, and nobody wants to be around you if you're a dick. It doesn't matter how handsome or whatever you are. And even if he wasn't a dick, he could never be Shrek. Nobody is Shrek, so nobody can offer what Shrek offers to the world. Like, if we lost any of the people that I've mentioned, they would leave a void in the world that nobody else could fill. Which is not only because they're some of the best to do what they've done, but because they take what most people would be ashamed of and they wear that as a badge of honor. And by extension, all the aspects of who they are that make them different come to the forefront with such a confidence that cements their sense of identity. And they even explored this idea in Shrek 2, where Shrek became a human. And when that happened, Shrek may have won the approval of strangers and no longer had to deal with the societal stigma of being an ogre, but it was at the price of losing everything about himself that he values. He lost his sense of identity. He lost the love of his life. He lost what made him Shrek. And it turned out that the whole time the reason that Fiona's father had such a problem with Shrek was because Fiona's father was a frog the whole time. And he was so used to pretending to be something that he wasn't, that seeing someone who fully embraced who they were when he thinks that they shouldn't, when he's on the inside being all ashamed of who he is, that was offensive to him. How dare you not only embrace who you are, while I've spent my life being ashamed of who I am, but now you're also enabling my daughter to feel okay with who she is as well? And that's the thing, is that everyone in the world has something that they're insecure about. Nobody is perfect. But while some people are able to look at who they are and just accept themselves and say, you know what, I don't care, other people become obsessed with changing who they are. They become obsessed with hiding these things they're insecure about and trying to fit in. And they do all these things to pretend they aren't this person, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make them happy. And to see someone else who is happy with the same aspects of who they are that they feel deeply ashamed about, things that they invest time and effort into changing or hiding, it's going to inspire them to either, on the bright side, they accept those things about themselves, or they start to lash out and get hostile towards those people. Which is something you need to remember. When you're being yourself and you're happy with who you are, unapologetically, there are going to be the people who see their own insecurities in you and they try and take that out on you. And a lot of times it's because those people are using these things that they can't control as a reason for why they can't move ahead in life. That way they don't have to confront the idea that maybe they have to put the work in to change and become better people in order to actually overcome their struggles. But it's a lot easier to just say, oh, it's because of this. Like, to bring it back to height, do you know how many women I've come across that like are genuinely like, I will not date a guy under a certain height? Maybe 3 or 4. Maybe. Do you know how many men have told me personally that it's hopeless for me to try and find a girlfriend because I'm under 6 feet? Way too many. And a lot of those guys were also under 6 feet, which tells me that they're projecting their own insecurities and the story that they have told themselves, and they're trying to push that onto me. That way they feel like they aren't alone, and maybe they can confirm to themselves that that's what's holding them back, because there are plenty of guys who are under 6 feet walking around with beautiful significant others. So what does that tell you about these dudes who are saying that it's hopeless? And what does the fact that they not only hold that belief, but they feel the need to impress that onto others say about them? It says that they didn't learn from Shrek that if you keep telling yourselves these stories about how the things that you can't change are what's holding you back, then it's just going to send you back to your swamp to sit there alone and grumpy and upset. But if you ask yourself why not, like, why can't I do this? And you start just going out and doing these things instead of telling yourself why you can't do them, then you can take on the world and you can make it yours. You gotta start asking yourself what you can give the world as opposed to focusing on what you can't. Be weird, be abnormal, accept yourself for who you are, and wear your insecurities like a crown. At the end of the day, Shrek is a cultural icon because he taught us to be proud of the things that we can't change, all while trying to be a more kind and understanding person in the process. So with that being said, that's all I gotta say. Roll the outro. Thank you so much for watching Let's Talk with Tom on the Roundtable. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a video. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a like, and you can comment down below to give us your thoughts, or you can find us at Roundtable Vids on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or you can find me at TomEPQM on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram. And I even have my own personal channel, youtube.com/TomEPQM, where I don't upload very much, but when I do, it's stuff that I'm like really proud of and I think it's really cool. So definitely check that out if you're interested. And if you want to see more of the stuff that I do here on the Roundtable, definitely check out the Runaway Club, which is like my video essay series. And I do quick chats once a week where I talk about a specific topic in animation. If you want to go above and beyond to support the Roundtable, you can click the join button down below to become a channel member, or you can pledge to us on Patreon, link in the description. And you can even support us by checking out our Teespring, where you can get shirts like this and many more to rep us out in public. As always, my name is Sam. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time. See ya!